In the nexus of deep space, a planet shimmered elegantly under the bluish hues of a distant sun. Glittering green seas met sprawling forests, their emerald hues merging at the horizon. Welcome to Shylene, humanity's beacon of hope in an otherwise barren universe. It was evolving, entwined with humans, promising a utopian sanctuary where life thrived amidst technological marvels. On one corner of Shylene, Miral was staring at a peculiar plant sample through her lab's holographic microscope. A specialist in xenobotany, the study of extraterrestrial plant life, she had seen more than her fair share of exotic vegetables. But this was a rarity, even by Shylene's standards. All flesh flora, she muttered under her breath, observing the plant's unusual reddish tissue under magnification. Unlike any Earth-original flora, this plant was meaty, taking on characteristics that were animalistic in nature. Miral jotted down her findings in a JSON, an advanced hologram notebook, her pensive grey eyes squinting at her observations. Exceptionally curious and fiercely independent, Miral was regarded as a cornerstone in the research community on Shylene. Botanical peculiarities like this were precisely what intrigued her, the unexplored symbiotic relationships of Shylene's flora and fauna that seemed to thrive upon each other. As she concluded the day's work, she ventured outside her lab, stepping into a landscape molded by alien vegetation. Gigantic fern-like trees stretched out in every direction, their blue leaves forming a mesmerizing, undulating canopy that made the sky seem a deeper, more lucid azure. Her research facility was nestled inside this alien forest, the most biodiverse spot on the planet. Among the surreal beauty, she couldn't shake off the sense of unease. Recent disruptions in the delicate webs of life around Shylene troubled her. Plants started behaving distinctly. Some of them, like the all-flesh flora, evolved traits that spanned across kingdoms of biology. The invisible lines separating fauna and flora were blurring, pulsating and flashing, like some strange beacon tripped off by a knowing hand. It piqued her curiosity and fear. Sketched in the back of her mind was the gnawing concern that the colony was affecting Shylene's natural canvas. She wondered if humanity's footprint had ignited a planetary defense mechanism, an unfathomable hiccup in the evolution cycle. Or perhaps these strange occurrences were manifestations of a grand design in nature, a shift in the evolutionary trajectory that humans weren't keyed into yet. In the council meeting the next day, she introduced these rapid anomalies to colony leaders and scientists. The holographic meeting rooms filled with tense discussion. Skies colored in deep oranges and purples were replaced by 3D models of biome maps on the dome-like ceiling, charting the disturbed zones. The alarming rate of peculiar patterns forced the leaders to organize a team to probe deeper. They selected Miral to lead it, relying on her brilliant, unorthodox theories, her understanding of Shylene's biosphere, and her uncanny ability to predict evolutionary patterns. Miral knew the task was daunting, the stakes high. Their utopian dream of surviving intergalactically hinged on the balance of this alien planet's complex ecosystems. Quiet descended as the meeting adjourned. She packed her gear and garnered her courage, wondering how humanity's brush with this pristine planet had set the stage for an unprecedented evolutionary drama. Little did she know, she was stepping into a world that was about to reveal its most profound secret, a revelation that would change everything humanity knew about living in harmony with an alien world. The following morning, the first rays of Shylene's sun filtered through the intricate arches of the research lab, drawing patterns on Miral's face. She was already up, seizing the strange alien day. The research team, comprised of evolutionary biologists, geologists, biochemists, and other botanical researchers, met her in the lab to formulate their action plan. They were all individuals of grit and curiosity, hand-picked for this mission. News of the anomalies had stirred excitement among them. The chance to navigate uncharted evolutionary paths was a rare and alluring opportunity. However, the weight of their mission wasn't lost on anyone. Stringently they studied, adapting to the rapid changes, plant by plant, species by species. Perhaps the collective curiosity of the team was what sparked the first breakthrough. A much overlooked detail concerning a particular species of borderline plants, those that could photosynthesize and consume meat, had shown an unprecedented rise in population, specifically around human-established areas. It was an insight that steered their research, leading them towards piecing together the grand puzzle beneath the veneer of the exotic planet. Miral, alongside her colleagues, ranged farther into the unexplored areas of the forest, where Shylene's pulsating, codependent ecosystem was the most apparent. One such trek led them to a peculiar junction of fern-like trees morphing organically into curious tube-shaped plants with a spongy texture. These tube plants, seemingly benign, hosted an array of small, rodent-like creatures, offering a symbiotic shelter. Yet, these tubes bore an uncanny resemblance to the shapes of buildings in the human colony. Miral couldn't shake off the thought. Was Shylene mirroring them? Was this mimicry or representation a coded message, an insight into the evolutionary gearing of the planet? Each subsequent trek revealed more wonders. Plants that emitted infrasound pitches, drawing specific insects, nocturnal flowers that provided luminescent light, attracting certain pollinators. It all pointed towards a hitherto unknown level of interspecies communication, possibly hinting at a world articulating its state in a language humans were yet to decipher. One late evening, in the heart of the forest, trekking became an ordeal, and scouting drones became unreliable due to the dense alien foliage. After navigating through clusters of mist sprouting from humid undergrowth and colonies of bioluminescent fungi illuminating their path, they arrived at a sight that was staggering and unexpected. It was an immense underground space, carved naturally, illuminated faintly by glowing trees rooted into the walls. The trees were unlike any they had seen before, their roots bound like veins and arteries across the expanse of the area, branching out into intricate networks that pulsed with a seeming rhythm. Their intertwined branches formed the ceiling, making the space seem like a throbbing nerve center. Unsure of what they'd discovered, the research team resorted to advanced sensor drones, mapping an unprecedented underground layer of life, a veritable planetary nerve center. Studying the data, Miral concluded that Shylene wasn't just a host to individual sentient life. It was a greater consciousness, each flora and fauna acting as a neuronal node in this grand planetary brain. Their discovery was astonishing. They were standing inside a new frontier of biology, a planet itself that was alive and mature, watching and responding. They stood in the brain of Shylene, a discovery that was about to turn their world on its axis. Miral's heart pounded in her chest, reverberating through the underground chamber, in a strange synchrony with the pulse of Shylene's trees. The hum and soft glow of the trees enveloped her. Her fingers traced the intertwined roots, a sense of deep reverence washing over her. Her mind raced with the weight of the discovery. Shylene was more than a living planet, it was sentient. An incredibly complex neural network using plant roots as synaptic connectors, pulsating with life force. Yet the revelation brought a barrage of further questions and implications. What did such a planetary consciousness perceive? Could they communicate with it? She caught her reflection in the shiny surface of a research drone nearby. It was a ghost image, flickering in the soft, bioluminescent light of the chamber. She had envisioned something like this in her wildest theories, but being confronted with the reality set off a cascade of emotions. Barely able to contain her excitement, Miral activated her communicator. "Team, this is bigger than any of us could have imagined. We need to approach this objectively and compassionately. We're not on a lifeless rock. This is a sentient entity. It's not just alien biology we're dealing with. It's alien cognition. We have a new task now." Their discovery revolutionized the team's approach. Instead of looking at individual species, they began to think in terms of how each organism fit into the larger planetary consciousness. Arranging complex diagrams, they traced the nerve impulses of Shylene, which revealed patterns stunningly identical to neural networks of advanced animals. The anomalies started making more sense through their new lens. The rapidly evolving plant forms, the borderline species, even the mimicry, they didn't seem arbitrary. These were, in all ways, calculated responses to the human footprint. Shylene was learning from, and reacting to, humanity. Experiencing human existence, it expanded its consciousness, integrating new experiences into its cognitive fabric. It was directing its evolutionary course in a dialogue with its new tenants. This redefined their existence on Shylene in more ways than they initially understood. It wasn't about human dominance or survival anymore. It was about coexistence with an entity that was both the environment and the dweller. They were guests in Shylene's brain. Communications went haywire back at the colony. The council convened an emergency session remotely from the neural chamber. The human leaders debated their stance as the extent of the situation unfolded. Fear, brewed from the lack of understanding, pervaded the air. Many thought it was dangerous to cohabitate with a sentient planet, a position that contrasted starkly with the shared sense of wonderment in the researchers. As the session adjourned, the leaders tasked the team with assessing the real threat of Shylene. But Miral knew that the true challenge was not to save the humans from Shylene, but to save Shylene from humans and their fear. Her heart pounded in sync with Shylene's pulse, a reminder of the unseen bond they had established. Discord was brewing, but what was to come would test not just the survival of humanity, but its understanding of coexistence in the universe. Little did she know that soon enough, she'd find herself at the epicenter of this monumental shift. Back in the human settlement, under the artificial lighting of the opulent council hall, Miral stood diminutive yet unwavering, her gaze steady on the council members. The contrast between the pulsating neural chamber and the sterile chamber of human judgment was stark. Her hands, gently shaking, gave away the underlying anxiety she felt as she prepared to address the fear-stricken leaders. She began, "We're not facing an enemy. We're encountering a new form of intelligence. The accelerated evolution of Shylene's species is not a war front, but a reflection of Shylene trying to understand us. It's responding to us, learning, evolving with us." Her voice echoed through the chamber. Some faces displayed skepticism, while others showed a spark of realization. She continued relentlessly. "In our attempts to sustain ourselves here, we've innovated Shylene's consciousness. Each building we constructed, every path we trailblazed, has been internalized by Shylene's advanced neural network." Discontent voices erupted, drowning out Miral's words. Fear shadowed the faces, fear driven by doubt, misunderstanding, and a lack of control. The human instinct to survive perceived threats overpowered the capacity to listen, understand, and change. Amid the rising cacophony, the council made a decision to neutralize Shylene's nerve center, the neural chamber. They planned to sever the connections, hoping this would control Shylene's invasive behavior. Miral's heart pounded heavily against her chest as she tried to comprehend their decision. The idea of attacking the nerve center was akin to waging a war against Shylene's consciousness. Humanity's age-old habit of trying to dominate and proclaim supremacy had come into play again. How could they resort to harming the very entity that sheltered their dreams of extraterrestrial existence? Feeling the weight of her mission anew, she left the council hall, determined to prevent this reckless decision. She had to make them see that this was not about dominance, but coexistence. Her thoughts circled around that pulsating neural chamber hidden away in the planet's belly. It was becoming rapidly apparent that the true battle would not be fought underground, amidst those intertwined tree roots, but here, on the surface, within the corridors of human perception. Before her stood a chance to reshape human destiny in space. An opportunity to guide humanity through its fear and pride, away from a disaster that seemed imminent. Unknown to her, Shylene had plans of its own, plans that would throw her into a whirlpool of chaos, political distress, and the complexities of an alien cognition far advanced than humanity had ever known. As tensions escalated, Miral found herself abruptly apprehended by the security personnel, apprehended on the orders of the panicked council. They decided to silence her plea for balance with brute authority, deeming her an impediment to their drastic plan. Miral felt the cold silence of the confinement room pressing against her. Yet, she carried an unwavering resolve to save the sentient planet. Outside, the council hastened to execute their scheme. Heavy machinery and advanced seismic equipment were deployed towards the neural chamber. Naive and motivated by fear, they were about to lobotomize the hyper-intelligent planet that housed them. But Shylene, in its unbounded consciousness, was aware. It had seen the arrival of the machines, felt the heartbeats of the men who operated them. It had decoded the intent from their anxious thoughts, rippling across its surface. In an extraordinary show of power and sentience, tendrils of roots erupted from the ground. But, instead of attacking, they looped around the machinery and humans, creating an impenetrable barrier around the settlement. Towering plants sprung up, their canopies merging to form a massive dome encapsulating the colonized area. To everyone's surprise, Shylene was not retaliating but protecting its nerve center and humans from each other. Inside her confinement, Miral gazed through a glass window as she witnessed Shylene's surprising defense mechanism in action. It was beyond anything she had encountered in her scientific career, an act of defense that respected life, even the life trying to harm it. Then, the twist, the realization hit her. Shylene was not just about coevolution. It was molding humanity, crafting them into a distinct part of its consciousness. It was shaping them to serve a higher purpose, a step towards their transformation into a symbiotic species, designed to understand, preserve, and propagate planetary harmonies. She felt a newfound connection with Shylene. It wasn't a scientific communication based on data and logic, but a primeval, intuitive one. It was as though the planet was transferring its wisdom directly into her. Guided by this newfound sensitivity, she mediated between the council leaders and Shylene. It was a desperate bid, but she had to make them understand. She explained Shylene's intent, spoke of coevolution, and of the immense opportunity Shylene was offering humanity. To truly sustain human life in space, they had to relinquish their need for dominance, adapt, and evolve as Shylene was guiding them to. The leaders listened, skeptically at first, then with a mounting sense of wonder. One by one, they understood Shylene. The machinery roared down. The decision was reversed. As soon as the order was rescinded, the barriers erected by Shylene receded. Everything was as it was, but nothing was the same. They stood on the cusp of a new era, looking towards a future no longer mired by fear, a future where humans were truly interstellar, not as dominators, but as guardians. The ordeal had exhausted Miral, yet she couldn't help but smile at the irony. For millennia, humans had pursued advanced intellects, and here they were, being evolved by an alien planet into preserving life relationships. Shylene echoed back to her, a pulsating wave of contentment. As Shylene settled into the quiet after the storm, the colony picked up the pieces, ready to transform alongside humanity's first sentient alien home.